The quiet, stormed air outside was cold, not the kind of cold that chills your bones, but the kind that makes your heart feel heavier. Gray clouds floated slowly across the sky like tired thoughts, and everything seemed a little quieter than usual. On a small street corner, hidden between a discount grocery store and an old barber shop, stood a dusty little pawn shop. Its glass door creaked when opened, and the golden letters on the sign had faded long ago. But inside, it was warm. Not just from the old heater humming in the back, but from the stories buried in every object. Mrs. Ellen Grace stood just outside that door, her hands trembling inside faded gloves. She was in her late 70s, her silver hair neatly tied in a bun, and her eyes held the kind of sadness that doesn't fade with time. In her hand, she held a small velvet box. Inside it was her wedding ring, simple, gold, and worn with love. Her late husband had given it to her 50 years ago on a snowy morning just like this. And now, here she was, about to give it away. Her electricity bill had come 2 days ago. It was more than she could pay. Last night, the lights had gone out. This morning, the house was cold. She'd tried everything else, called every place she could think of. But no one could help in time. She didn't tell anyone, not her neighbor, not the friendly librarian, and definitely not her son, who lived 3 states away and hadn't called in over a year. She didn't want pity. She just needed a little warmth, so she opened the pawn shop door. A small bell rang. The man behind the counter barely looked up. He was young, maybe in his 30s, chewing gum, scrolling through his phone. He wore a hoodie and a bored expression. "Yeah," said. Ellen stepped forward. Her voice was soft. I have something to sell." The man finally looked at her and noticed the box. His eyebrows raised a little. "What is it?" he slowly opened the velvet box. Inside was the ring. Nothing flashy. No diamonds. Just gold. But the kind of gold that held memories. The man looked at it, squinted, and picked it up. "This is it." He turned it over in his hand. "It's light. No gems. I'll give you 20. Ellen blinked. $20. Yup. Best I can do. Her lips trembled. Her fingers clutched her purse tightly. "Please." This was my husband's. "I just need enough for the bill. 60 would help. I don't need more." The man shrugged. "Lady, it's just gold. 20's generous." Ellen closed her eyes. Shh. She could feel the weight in her chest pressing harder. For a moment, she said nothing. Just nodded slowly, her shoulders sinking like a boat taking on water. She whispered, "Okay?" And that's when the door opened again. A man stepped inside, tall black coat, soft scarf. His beard had traces of gray, but his eyes were kind. He looked around, then noticed Ellen and the man holding her ring. He didn't say anything at first. He just watched the shop owner's side. "Can I help you?" The man stepped forward. "Yes," he said in a calm voice. "Hey, what's going on?" Here, Ellen turned around and looked up at him. She blinked. She had seen that face before. Somewhere, the shop owner rolled his eyes. "She's selling a ring. I told her it's worth 20. May I see it?" The man asked gently. Ellen hesitated, but then slowly opened the box again. He leaned down slightly, looking at it with quiet respect. "It's beautiful," he said softly. She nodded, tears gathering in the corner of her eyes. "It was my husband's. He passed away 7 years ago. I've never taken it off until today." He looked at her, his voice still soft. "Why today?" She hesitated. Then, with no pride left to hold, she whispered, "I have no power. The house is freezing." I didn't know what else to do. He looked at her for a long second, not with pity, but with something deeper, something still. "How much do you need?" he asked. Ellen looked away. 60. He pulled out his wallet, and then slowly, carefully, pulled out $100 bill and placed it on the counter. "She's not selling the ring," he said. The shop owner stared. "Wait, what?" "She's not selling it," the man repeated. "She's keeping it." He turned to Ellen. "You can keep the money, too." Ellen's eyes widened. Her lips trembled. I can't." "You can," he said gently. Her voice cracked. Who are you?" He smiled slightly. Just someone who believes in holding on to love. And then she remembered. Her eyes widened. You're Keanu Reeves. He nodded once, simply, not proud. Just real. The pawn shop was silent. The young man behind the counter stepped back, unsure of what to say. Ellen clutched the box to her chest, then looked at the money on the counter. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Keanu nodded again. You shouldn't have to let go of love to survive. And just like that, he turned and walked out the door, leaving the little shop warmer than it had ever felt. But the story didn't end there. Outside, a woman sat in her car across the street. She had seen everything. Her camera had been rolling. She wasn't paparazzi, just a young journalist working on a kindness documentary. And that moment, that quiet act of goodness, would soon change more than one life. The story goes, Veralth Street outside the pawn shop was quiet again. Cold wind blew down the sidewalk, carrying dried leaves and whispers of what had just happened. Keanu Reeves had already disappeared down the block, walking as if nothing unusual had happened. He didn't wait for thanks, didn't look back, and didn't speak another word. But behind him, something powerful was beginning, something even he hadn't planned. Inside the car, across the street, Mia Thompson sat frozen. She was 26, fresh out of journalism school, working on her first real documentary, one focused on real acts of kindness. She didn't have a big crew or expensive equipment, just her camera, her notebook, and a heart that believed. The world still had goodness in it. When she saw the elderly woman enter the pawn shop, she'd started recording, thinking it might lead to something meaningful. She'd never imagined Keanu Reeves would walk into the frame. She definitely didn't expect what he would do next. Her hands were shaking as she reviewed the footage. There was no setup, no dramatic music, no editing, just truth. Pure, honest kindness. The way he looked at that old woman. The way he didn't hesitate. The way he left without wanting anything in return. Mia's eyes filled with tears. This, she whispered to herself, this is the story. Later that night, in her small apartment filled with coffee cups and sticky notes, she edited the video just slightly. She added one sentence of text at the beginning. She came to sell her ring. He came to remind her she didn't have to. Then she posted it to her small YouTube channel, title, Keanu Reeves saves elderly woman's wedding ring at pawn shop. Real kindness caught on camera. Description. An elderly woman walked into a pawn shop to sell her ring. How she left with her heart full. This isn't fiction. This is the kind of moment that restores your faith in humanity. Thank you, Keanu. Within the first 2 hours, the video had a few hundred views. Most of Mia's followers were classmates and friends. They liked it, shared it, commented things. Like, he's always been one of the good ones. This made me cry. Thank you for posting. The world needs more men like him. But then, it happened. Someone big reposted the video, a popular, kindness-themed account with over 2 million followers. And then another, by morning. The video had crossed 1 million views. By afternoon, it was trending on every social media platform. People were sharing it across the globe. In France, in India, in South America, everywhere, people were writing things like, I watched this 5 times. The way he doesn't even want recognition. Just wow. This reminded me of my grandmother. I miss her so much. I needed to see this today. By the end of day 1, the video hit 12 million views. But for Keanu, the world was still. Quiet, he had no idea what had happened. He had gone home, made himself a simple dinner, and was reading a book near the window. The lights were low. He didn't check the internet much. Didn't own social media. His phone stayed off most of the time, unless it was a call from someone he knew personally. He didn't know that somewhere out there, millions of people were now talking about him. Crying because of him, believing again because of something he didn't even think twice about, but someone else did know. Ellen Grace, her neighbor. Tommy, a kind man in his 40s who often helped with groceries, had knocked on her door. That morning, Mrs. Grace. He said, why died? You're on the internet. Ellen blinked. Me. He showed her the video on his phone. There she was, standing in the pawn shop, holding her ring. And there was Keanu, saving her without a second of hesitation. She sat down slowly in her chair, hand over her heart. She watched the video in silence. Her fingers trembled again, but this time not from sadness. This time from being seen. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He didn't do it for this, she whispered. He just did it. But that wasn't the end. The mayor's office called. They wanted to honor Keanu with a Community Kindness Award. A small charity group called and said they wanted to pay Ellen's electric bill, not just this one, but every bill for the next year. Someone else offered to renovate her kitchen, but most of all, her phone didn't stop ringing. Old friends, cousins, even her son. "Mom," he said, his voice cracked with guilt. "I saw the video. I didn't know you were struggling like that." Ellen didn't yell, didn't scold. She just said, "Thank you for calling." They spoke for an hour. Meanwhile, Mia Thompson, the young woman behind the video, was getting offers from news networks, producers, even agents. People wanted to interview her, feature her documentary idea, pay for more stories like this. But none of that compared to the email she received the next morning. The subject line read, "Thank you, from Keen." Her breath caught. She clicked the message. It was simple. No long words. No dramatic phrases, just "Thank you for showing the world that kindness still matters. I wasn't expecting to be seen, but maybe people needed to see that moment. I'm glad you were there. If you're ever working on another story, let me know." She read it over and over again that night. Mia cried. Not because of the success, not because she was now being noticed, but because something real had happened. Something true, and she had helped carry it into the world. Outside, snow began to fall. Inside that little pawn shop, the owner now had a new sign on the wall. "Kindness is not for sale, but it's always welcome here." And somewhere across the city, Keanu sat quietly again near his window, watching the snow, not needing the world to notice him, but somehow making the world a little better just by being in it. The phone call Keanu didn't expect days passed. Storm of the internet slowly calmed, but the warmth it left behind stayed. The video was still being watched, still being shared, and still making strangers cry in different corners of the world, but Keanu Reeves, quiet and grounded as always, had returned to his simple life. He still walked to the corner cafe every morning, still read his books by the window, still rode his motorcycle through the city streets with a helmet that covered his face. He didn't speak to the media, didn't accept the award the mayor wanted to give him. He politely declined all interviews. "I didn't do anything special," he told the assistant who forwarded him the requests. "I just helped someone." But behind the scenes, the ripples were growing wider than he knew. Ellen. Grace, now gently recognized by her neighbors and even strangers at the grocery store, started to receive handwritten letters. People told her their stories, how they had lost someone too, how they had almost sold the only memory left of their loved one, how seeing her keep her ring reminded them to hold on to what really matters. One letter came from a 12-year-old girl in Ohio. It read, "Dear Mrs. Grace, I saw your video with my mom. My dad died last year. We were sad every day. But after we saw you, my mom hugged me and said we're going to be okay." Love, Emily Alon kept that letter next to her ring box. But something unexpected happened one quiet afternoon. A phone call. Not to Ellen, not to Mia, but to Keanu himself. His phone rarely rang. When it did, it was usually his agent or his sister. But this call came from a blocked number. He stared at the screen for a second before answering. "Hello?" he said, a woman's voice, nervous and soft. Replied Mr. Reeves. My name is Lucy Barker. I'm a volunteer at Hope Bridge Shelter downtown. We take care of elderly folks who don't have families. One of our residents, she saw the video. She hasn't spoken in nearly 6 months. But after seeing you, she said your name." Keanu sat up. She spoke. "Yes," Lucy said, her voice breaking a little. "Her name is Doris. She's out of 4. She lost her husband last winter. Since then, she hasn't said more than a few words. Until yesterday. She looked at the screen, watched what you did, and whispered, He reminded me of how my husband used to look at me. Then she smiled. Keanu didn't know what to say, Lucy continued. I don't want to make things awkward or push anything. But she keeps asking if she can meet you. She knows it might not happen, but I had to try. There was a long silence. Then Keanu said, What's the address? 2 days later, dressed in a simple sweater and carrying a small bouquet of soft white flowers, Keanu walked through the doors of Hope Bridge. Shelter. The air inside was warm, peaceful. The volunteers greeted him with wide eyes and quiet gratitude. They didn't take pictures. They didn't post on social media. They respected the moment. Lucy led him down a hallway, her steps slow with emotion. She's in the sunroom, she whispered. That's where she spends most of her afternoons. Keanu nodded and stepped in. Doris sat in a wooden chair. Oh, blanket on her lap, looking out at a small garden through a big window. Sunlight poured in, painting her face in soft gold. Her hair was white, her hands folded gently. When she turned and saw him, her lips parted slightly. Her eyes filled with light. Keanu walked forward slowly. Hi, Doris, he said. She didn't speak for a moment. Ah! Then her hand lifted toward him, shaky but steady in meaning. He took her hand in his. She whispered, You look like him, when he sat beside her. Your husband? He asked. She nodded. Harold. He would have done what you did. He was quiet but kind. Keanu smiled. Sounds like someone I'd have liked to meet. They sat in silence after that. Not awkward silence. The kind of silence that means peace. Doris said softly, Thank you for reminding me. Not just of him, but of the good in people. Keanu gently placed the flowers in her lap. Thank you for remembering, he said. Lucy stood at the doorway watching, her hands pressed together like prayer. And somewhere deep in the heart of the shelter, a camera recorded nothing. Because this moment wasn't meant for views or headlines. It was meant for the soul. That night, Keanu didn't go home right away. He walked the long way back through the city. Past old brick buildings, small diners, and forgotten alleys. He thought about Doris, about Ellen, about Mia, about how a simple act could ripple so far. He didn't plan any of it, he never did, but maybe that was the point. A stranger's gift a week had passed since Keanu visited Doris at Hope Bridge Shelter. He hadn't told anyone about it. No press, no publicist, no cameras. Just a man doing what he felt was right. But the world had a way of noticing even when you didn't ask it to. One rainy evening, Mia Thompson sat by her desk, sipping cold tea and organizing her new documentary plans. She had received funding after the viral video, and kindness stories were now her mission. But something still lingered in her heart, a question she hadn't answered yet. She clicked the video again. Watched the moment Keanu handed over the $100 bill, the way Ellen looked up at him. Silence, the tears, the weight of the ring in her palm, and his quiet exit. Mia paused the video and whispered to herself, Why does he care so much? She knew celebrities gave money, attended charity events, wrote checks. But Keanu's kindness felt different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't performed. It was personal. She decided to write him a letter, not for an interview, not to ask for more footage, just to understand him, really understand. That same night, across the city, Ellen Grace sat on her couch holding a small wrapped box. Her fingers brushed the old ribbon, and she smiled to herself. The electricity had been back for days. Her fridge was full, thanks to strangers who had sent grocery packages. Her mailbox now overflowed with letters instead of bills. For the first time in years, her home felt alive. But this box, this was for him. The next morning, she walked slowly toward the post office. It was raining lightly, but she didn't mind. Her coat was warm, her heart was full. She mailed the package with a simple label. To Keanu Reeves, Private. A few days later, it reached his hands. Keanu didn't expect any mail. He rarely got personal letters. But something about the handwriting on this box made him pause. It looked gentle, careful, like someone who had taken their time. He opened it slowly. Inside, wrapped in soft cloth, was a small photo frame. In the photo were two young people, Ellen and her husband on their wedding day. Black and white, their faces glowing with joy. Next to it was a folded letter. He opened it and began to read. Dear Keanu, I don't know how to thank you. My husband's name was George. He was the love of my life. When I lost him, it felt like the light had gone out. That ring was my last. Tied to him, I was ready to let go. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt I had no choice. Then you walked in. You didn't ask my story. You didn't need to. Just helped. Not as a star, not as a hero, just as a kind man. People like you don't just help someone's day. You help someone's life. I want you to have this photo of us, not because I think you need a reminder, but because I believe you're the kind of man who holds on to stories with love and light. Ellen Grace Keanu held the frame in both hands. For a long time, he said nothing. He just looked at the photo, at George's smile, at Ellen's joy, and he felt something deep in his chest, a warmth that couldn't be described in words. He placed the photo on a shelf beside a small collection of quiet things. A music box his sister once gave him, a notebook of poems, and now, this dot later. That night, Keanu sat alone in his kitchen, lights dimmed, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. He kept thinking about something Doris had said at the shelter. You reminded me of him. He had heard those words before. It's not just from Doris, but from strangers, from fans. People who said he reminded them of someone good, someone kind, someone they'd lost. And maybe that's why he cared so deeply. Maybe that's why when he saw Ellen that day in the pawn shop, he didn't see a stranger. He saw someone's mother, someone's love, someone's story. Across the city, Mia received a surprise message. It was short. Thank you for seeing the whole picture. Let's talk soon. She smiled and whispered, he's ready. The next day, Mia began work on a new project. It wouldn't be just another video. It would be something real, something lasting. Full documentary series called Quiet Heroes. Episode 1. The man who saved a ring and reminded the world how to feel again. But even as cameras began to roll again, the story was far from over. Because far away, in another state, someone else was watching that same viral video. A woman with tired eyes and calloused hands, sitting alone in a dark kitchen. Her name was Martha. She was Ellen's long-lost sister. She hadn't spoken to her in over 30 years. And now, she was picking up the phone. The call that reopened an old door. Martha Grace sat in a small wooden chair in the corner of her kitchen. The walls were thin. The light above her flickered quietly, and a small heater groaned near her feet. Her hands rough from years of work. And life held a phone with trembling fingers. Her eyes were fixed on the paused image on the screen. The video that had traveled across the world but hit her heart harder than anyone could imagine. It had been 31 years since she last saw her sister, Ellen. They had once been close to young girls who used to share secrets, shared dresses, shared dreams. But life had scattered them like dust. One misunderstanding, one hurtful word, one missed apology, and silence took over. Martha had never stopped thinking about her, but she had never known how to reach back until now. The video showed her sister, older but still full of grace, still standing with strength even in sorrow. Martha watched Ellen's eyes as she clutched the wedding ring. She knew that look. She had seen it in the mirror after her own husband passed. And then, the man Keanu Reeves. Martha hadn't even recognized him at first. She barely followed films or celebrities. But she recognized something else, the way he looked at Ellen, the way he stood beside her without taking over, without making it about him. That's what made her pick up the phone. It rang 3 times. Hello? Ellen's voice was soft. Martha froze. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Ellie, it's me. There was a long silence. Martha. Ellen whispered back. Martha tried to speak, but tears took over. Ellen said again, Martha, is it really? You. I saw the video, Martha said, her voice shaking. I saw you. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Ellen sat down slowly, her hand on her heart. I don't know what to say then. Don't say anything, Martha whispered. Just let me say I'm sorry. Ellen closed her eyes. Me too, she whispered. And just like that, 31. Years of silence crumbled like dust. They talked for hours that night. About their husbands. About the time they lost. About the memories still alive inside them. And at the end, Martha said, "I want to come see you." Ellen smiled through her tears. "I'd like that." But this wasn't the only heart that softened. Mia Thompson was now filming her second day of interviews. Her documentary Quiet Heroes was slowly coming to life. She had filmed Ellen already, a beautiful moment where Ellen sat beside a window, holding her wedding ring and saying, "Love doesn't end just because someone is gone. It waits." Keanu hadn't agreed to a full interview, but he had allowed her to follow him for a few quiet days, walking, helping, talking to people in the city without ever asking for anything in return. But something strange happened. As they were filming one day outside a small bookstore, a man came running up, double quotes Keanu. He called out breathless, "You don't know me, but my dad owns the pawn shop." Keanu turned to him calmly. "Is everything okay?" The man nodded quickly. Yes, more than okay." That moment with the elderly woman, it changed. "My dad, he used to be cold, just all about money. But now he's been different. He even started a donation shelf in the store for people who come in with more need than stuff. Doesn't even charge sometimes. He says it reminds him of what really matters." Keanu smiled slightly. The man looked nervous. "I just wanted to say thank you. Really." Keanu nodded once and said, "I didn't change your dad. He chose to be better. That's his story." That night, Mia sat with her camera crew, reviewing the footage. She turned to her assistant and said, "This isn't just about Keanu. It's about all the lives touched after he left the pawn shop. We have to find more." They began reaching out, and the stories came pouring in. A woman in Texas who started a kindness club at her school. A retired firefighter in Michigan who paid 3 months of rent for a stranger. A teenage boy in Italy who made a short film inspired by the video and won a local film festival. They all pointed back to one moment. One man, one act, one ring. Martha arrived by train 1 week later. Ellen stood waiting at the station, holding a small bouquet of daisies, Martha's favorite since childhood. The train doors opened, and Martha stepped out. Both sisters froze, and then they walked toward each other. No words, just tears. Arms wrapping around each other like time had never passed. Watching from a distance was Keanu, wearing his usual black coat, his hands tucked in his pockets. He didn't go over. He didn't say anything. Just watched for a moment, smiled gently, and walked away. But before he left the station, Mia caught up to him. "You're not going to say hello?" she asked. He shrugged. This was their moment, not mine. Mia looked at him. "Do you ever realize what your presence does to people?" Keanu turned to her. "I'm not trying to be anyone. I'm just trying not to walk past someone who's hurting." And with that, he walked into the rain again. But the final part of this story was still waiting. And it wasn't written in the streets or the screens. It was waiting in a quiet envelope sitting in Keanu's mailbox from a child. The letter from a child rain tapped gently against Keanu's window. He sat in his kitchen, warm mug in hand, a book resting on the table, left unread. His thoughts wandered as they often did, not toward fame or roles or awards, but toward people, quiet people like Ellen, like Doris, like Martha. His life had been filled with moments no one saw, not because he hid them, but because they weren't meant for the spotlight. They were small moments, private, human. The kind of moments that made someone feel seen. Just then, the sound of the mail slot clicking open broke the silence. A few envelopes landed softly on the floor. Bills, mostly. A few printed invitations, and then one small handwritten envelope. With soft pink crayon letters, he picked it up too. Mr. Keanu Reeves from Emily, age 12. He opened it slowly. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, the edges curled. The writing uneven but filled with heart. "Dear Mr. Reeves, I saw the video where you helped the old lady with her ring. I cried because it made me feel like people can still be good. My daddy died last year. I miss him every day. My mommy cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. I tried to give her my stuffed bear once, but she said she didn't want me to. Lose what I love. So when I saw you help the lady keep her ring, I told mommy she should keep daddy's old shirt, the one with the little coffee stain he always wore on Sundays. She smiled and hugged me really tight. We cried together, happy crying. It's like maybe we weren't alone. You didn't just save that ring. You helped my mommy smile again. Thank you, love, Keanu. Read the letter slowly, every word sinking deeper into his chest. He folded it gently, placed it on the table beside the photo frame Ellen had sent, and stared out the window. It was still raining, but somehow it felt warm. The next morning he wrote a letter of his own, not to a producer, not to a studio, but to Emily. Dear Emily, thank you for your beautiful letter. I'm so sorry about your dad. I can tell from your words that he was a very special person. And I know he would be very proud of you for being so kind to your mom. You did something very brave. You shared your heart. And sometimes that's the strongest thing a person can do. I hope your mom keeps that shirt forever. Sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest memories. I'm sending you something that helped me once, a little book of poems. They helped me when I felt alone. Maybe you and your mom can read them together. With kindness, Keanu wrapped the letter with care, slipped the small poetry book inside the envelope, and added a soft note for Emily's mother too. That letter would reach them a few days later, and when it did, a new smile would bloom across a tired woman's face. And a little girl would hold the book like a treasure. But back in the city, something unexpected happened. Ellen and Martha, now reunited, hosted a small gathering in Ellen's backyard. Just tea, cookies, and old stories. Neighbors came by, including Tommy from next door, and even the owner of the pawn shop, who now wore a badge on his shirt that read, "I believe in second chances." Mia was there too, filming softly from the edges, and just as the sun began to set, Martha raised her teacup and said, "To the man who reminded us what kindness looks like." Everyone turned. Keanu, standing quietly by the garden fence, gave a shy wave. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Ellen walked up to him, handed him a warm cookie, and said, "Thank you for giving me back more than a ring," smiled. "Thank you for showing me what holding on really means." Later that night, Mia uploaded the final chapter of her documentary, Quiet Heroes, The Ripple of One Good Man. The comments flooded in again, not with noise, but with heart. "I called my mom after watching this, donated to my local shelter today. I hugged my grandfather and told him I loved him. Thank you. The world hadn't changed overnight. It never does. But something had shifted. A little more light, a little more listening, a little more kindness passed forward like a quiet chain." As for Keanu, he returned to his quiet life. But this time with one more photo on his shelf, a drawing from a child, a house, a smiling sun, two people holding hands beneath it, the words, "Kindness lives forever."